Very good. How old are you?
I'm 28.
28. So tell me a little bit about last night. What were you there doing?
Yeah, I have had a personal sort of interest in the protests. I do a lot of work in local politics and local government, and so I've been attending the protests and trying to document what I'm seeing and share it on Twitter and other social media for people who aren't able to be present due to the virus or due to safety concerns. So I was really there just to kind of observe and share whatever I saw.
Right. What happened?
So,
or did you know Michaela before all this?
I don't know her. I've never met her before.
Had you seen her there though earlier? I mean,
no, I not until things happened.
Okay, so kind of describe what happened.
So, from my perspective, we and this is all obviously just my own experience. We marched to the Richmond Police Department headquarters from the Grove Park, and there were immediately lots of police in riot gear. The only media that I saw there were reporters from the Commonwealth Times and an independent reporter, Brandon Jarvis. I didn't see anybody from CBS 6 or any of the other local TV stations. Would have been nice to have them there to document things. The protest was specifically in response to the Richmond Police Department vehicles that hit protesters the previous night on Monument Avenue and then drove off. So there was already, I think, a lot of understandable anger from people towards the police. Protests were completely peaceful from everything that I witnessed. We walked up, there were lines of riot cops all across Grace Street. They had used DPW dump trucks to block off the intersections on either side of the headquarters on Grace Street. There were Henrico Police and Virginia State Police there along with Richmond Police. A lot of the police officers had body armor that was obstructing their badges and their name tags. I personally asked several officers to identify themselves and was ignored. I saw that happening with several others. There were several times where police seemed to spray tear gas above the heads of the crowd. Tear gas or pepper spray, I don't really know, which. And I was definitely sprayed directly and indirectly by pepper spray. I didn't see any provocation for those actions at all. I saw a person get arrested, and to my knowledge, she's the only person who was arrested there. From what I could tell, she stepped off of the sidewalk, was immediately pepper sprayed and thrown to the ground by several officers who then cuffed her and dragged her off. From then on, the protest seemed really focused on securing her release.
So how far were you from Michaela?
I was probably
near to the fire hydrant?
Yeah, about that. Yeah, almost exactly that far from the person who was arrested.
Right. And you saw her do nothing else, just step off and then boom.
Yeah, that was what I saw, and that's the video that I was able to share to Twitter that night as it happened. I think shows that as well.
Right. So would you describe yourself as a protester? How do you describe yourself?
No, I have been present for protests. I've been marching, and I'm certainly concerned about the underlying issues. But I have been there as an observer. I have always kind of tried to...
So we put your name up, observer, is, you know how you do, Wayne Copeland,
yeah.
Senior reporter, Jimmy Lee, restaurant owner, Jimmy Lee, you just want observer?
Or just citizen, Richmond citizen. I'm a member of the Democratic Party, and I work with candidates here in Richmond, but I would not consider myself to be part of the protests.
So when you went home last night and laid your head on your pillow,
mm-hmm.
what was Jimmy Lee thinking about what he saw in terms of what happened with Michaela? Or were you upset about it, went right to sleep, or is it something that you still kind of, did I miss something, what happened kind of thing? What's your thoughts?
There's definitely a lot of chaos on the ground during those situations. Something that I observed was that, one end of the protest line, you had police officers removing their masks, very casually talking to protesters, not being aggressive, and then just on the other side of the block, really aggressive, shoving with shields, full riot gear. So it's really difficult from where you're standing to know what is happening even a few feet or yards away from you. So certainly there are things that I didn't witness and that I missed. I don't think any one person.
That's interesting. Two different dichotomies.
Sure.
So how far were the people that were talking and had taken their mask off? How far was that from you?
I mean, I was walking up and down the line all
okay.
evening, so I wasn't in one place. I was with them. I engaged in conversation with Sergeant John Bridges, with Richmond City Councilwoman Stephanie Lynch had come down to observe when I think she heard things had started to get out of control. So I engaged in conversations with the police that were cordial and pleasant, and I also then just a few minutes later was shoved around by Henrico police and their riot shields, as was Council Member Lynch.
Anything else you want to add?
Just that I really hope that local media will start showing up to these protests and getting firsthand documentation instead of relying on...
You do realize we've been at most of the protests.
I didn't see any camera crews there last night.
Can't be at all of them.
Well, last night was a pre-planned protest in response to the...
Saturday.
To Saturday. And
now, were you there Saturday?
I was.
Well, how close were you to that incident?
I was right, I'd say, between from me to your vehicle, 20 feet away from the SUV that hit protesters.
How scary was that moment for you personally?
In the moment, it wasn't very scary. Definitely, and I think this has been the case with every single night of protests. Definitely feeling very shaken afterwards, after getting home and the adrenaline wears off. It was very scary. I mean, there have been obviously terror attacks with people driving into peaceful protesters, and that's the same thing that eyewitness to RPD do. I've seen statements from them saying that their officer who was in the vehicle was somehow attacked. I've seen them post photos of a broken window on the vehicle. There were no broken windows on the vehicle when it hit protesters or when it sped away. And I didn't see any assault or attack on any officers. I just saw the vehicle push into a crowd of protesters, knock people over, jump up on the curb, and speed away east on Monument.
Disconcerting, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Both of them equal?
I'm sorry?
Both of them equal when you look at them about just what was going on?
Both situations?
Yeah.
I'd say every single evening that I've been out, I've witnessed police having very, I would say, violent and unprovoked behavior towards protesters. That night, on the first weekend of protests, I was with a Richmond School Board member, and we were shot at with rubber bullets for no reason. We weren't even with the main body of protesters. We were standing along the side of the road filming. We had tear gas shot at us. And so every night I've seen people who were not engaging in any kind of violence, property damage, vandalism, looting, whatever you want to say. Whether or not those things are justified, I've seen people who are not engaging them have violent responses from the police.
But you have seen the other side.
What?
The other side where they interacted and were not.
I've seen property damage. I've seen
No,
graffiti.
with the police. You've seen where the police were not violent.
I have not been out a single night when I didn't witness some kind of violence from law enforcement officers.
But you had said earlier that you saw them interacting, and taking their mask off.
In that moment, and then shortly after that is when they donned riot gear again and started gassing the crowd, spraying the crowd, launching flashbangs, and frankly, shoving and knocking around myself and a Richmond council person.
Okay. Super good.
All right.
You did great.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
If I can be of any more help, let me know.
I appreciate that. You be safe out there.
Thank you. All right, y'all take care.